Hey guys, Caroline here with Caroline Fitsimones Coaching. I'm coming on today to share a very important step that we as parents often forget to follow through on, and that is how to handle a tough situation afterwards. And this is for a number of reasons. One of them is a lot of times when parents come to me under chronic stress, overwhelm, feeling lost with how to help their kids, and just feeling the weight of their challenges is taking a toll on their family, they tend to resort to survival mode where they are just dealing with situations as they arise. So this becomes a very reactive state. It might sound like, why did you just hit your sister? Or how many times have I told you to put your book bag away? And so dealing with things in the moment constantly is sort of like putting a Band-Aid on on a wound. We're not dealing with the root here. We're not doing enough proactive strategies. And even when we are teaching proactive strategies, scaffolding, uh, supporting our kids with their lagging skills, teaching them very explicitly strategies for self-regulation, things might still fall apart for a number of reasons. Life happens, sickness happens. We may just have a tough day, and we may be faced with uh, power struggles or just a meltdown, for example. So how we handle those big feelings or challenging behaviors, even our own mistakes after the fact, is just as important as in the moment itself. So I want to give you guys 3 steps, and these are what I call closing the loop. So whenever an opportunity comes for learning, let's say through a mistake or a challenge, then how are we closing the loop? This helps to solidify learning because you can use what just happened to carry over to the next experience so that you can do things differently and in a much more efficient or effective way. So the first step is to reflect and take a pause for yourself. Take inventory and notice your own emotions. So I'll give a recent example that I am a little bit embarrassed to share, but I'm just going to keep it real here. Not too long ago, I became very overwhelmed and upset with my kids and kicked a hole in the door. How did this happen? I had to take a moment to reflect back. What led up to that big reaction of mine? And so at the moment, I was boiling a pot of pasta. My kids were fighting. I think, on the phone dealing with something, and I walked outside just to get a deep breath of fresh air. And as I did that, my son locked the door behind me. And that was my trigger. I completely got so angry at that because I was worried about the pot boiling over. And when I finally found the spare, got in, he had run up to his room, locked the door, and that's when I kicked it and busted a hole in the door. And so first I had to take responsibility for my own actions. And here's what it looks like to reflect. What was I feeling in the moment? What triggered me? And did I show up the way I wanted to? And in reflecting, I saw that I was very angry. My body was completely tense. So not just noticing our emotions, but noticing our physiological sensations. How is it showing up in our body? I was hot. My hands were balled up. Uh, everything in my whole entire body was very stiff. And then what triggered me? Well, it was sort of like a slow simmering pot inside, not just literally, but there were too much going on and I became overwhelmed. So multitasking was my worst enemy at that point. And then did I show up the way I wanted to? Of course not. I was very reactive. I scared my kids. I um, put a rift in our relationship just in how I respond or reacted in that moment. So this step of reflecting is not about judgment, even though I was initially criticizing and condemning myself, just feeling a lot of shame and blaming myself. But stopping and taking inventory of that and giving myself self-compassion was all about awareness here. The more we can stop and reflect, the more we build awareness instead of judgment. And then the next step is to assess, look at the situation with curiosity, just like I was saying, instead of blame. So ask, what was I struggling with? Or in this case, or for your child, what was my child's need or struggle underneath that behavior? What worked in the moment and what didn't? And then were my expectations realistic given their age, their skill, their state of regulation at that point? Our regulation changes from day to day and time of day. At the end of the day, I'm much more prone to being dysregulated than at morning time when I'm more well rested and when I'm fed, when I have not spent up all my energy through the day. And so assessment helps us to separate the behavior from the skills that we're still developing. So for myself, instead of staying in that shame and blame mode of, oh, great, I just kicked the door and damaged it, but it was looking at the skill that was lagging for myself in that moment, which was impulse control because I was so tired, emotional regulation because I was overwhelmed. And so all of this helps us to empathize with our kids because the very skills we are teaching them are skills that we sometimes can fall short with. So the third step here is to debrief. When everyone is calmer, circle back with your child. And here's a caveat. That might be 10 minutes later. It might be a day or two later. It's different for the individual. Some kids need more time and space to process, and some kids need less. So keep it brief and neutral. Something like earlier, it was tough. Let's talk about it. And just with the example with my son, he was not ready. He was telling me to get out of his room. And my response this time was calmer and understanding. I just simply nodded and I said, I'll be back. And later on, when I came back and I can tell his body was more relaxed, his facial expression was more relaxed, I was able to just sit near him. And I named the challenge and the feeling. I said earlier, I was so overwhelmed. I was angry and I lost control of my emotions. And this led me to highlight what I would do differently next time. First, I apologized and I said, I'm sorry for that. Next time, I'll take a moment to just step away before coming to talk to you. When my body is calm, I'll know that it's time to come talk to you. I'll also not talk on the phone while I'm cooking because I was overwhelmed when that happened. So debriefing just shows your kids that mistakes are opportunities to learn and repair, but also what skills were missing and what you could do next time. And then over time, this cycle of reflecting, assessing, debriefing, it will help your child to learn how to bounce back quicker from their own shortcomings, whether it was a meltdown or being aggressive to another student or sibling, and then learning new strategies, what they could do differently next time. And then all of this builds resilience together. So I hope this helps. It's such an important step to be able to close the loop, circle back, and use those mistakes and challenges as learning opportunities to do things differently next time. Talk to you later.